Happy Monday, everyone. This is Martha with Nature Niche. I'm coming to you on location along the Pine River. I'm here with Matthew Lindauer. He is the Central Michigan CISMA Coordinator. That's Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area. And you have a really important new invasive species that we want the public to know about, right, Matthew?
I do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me show up and talk about it.
Yeah.
It's called flowering rush, and we're seeing it along the pine, and we are trying to find out right now exactly where the source is at. We know it goes from here at least as far as to the Gordonville or the Bob G. Caldwell boat launch. We've done some surveying and some polls in through there. It probably does go beyond there for a bit, but it was pretty clear of it by the time we actually got to that boat ramp there. So that's the good news.
Okay.
We're tracing it back along the Pine River, since that seems to be the source. And all of the site checks in Alma, we haven't seen any in through there just yet, but that's just been site checks on foot in waders as opposed to kayaking along. So who knows, maybe a different result if we were to do that. But a bit about the actual plant itself. It is an aquatic plant, a semi-aquatic. So right in front of me is a pretty great example of half of it is in the sand here and half of it is right in the water line there. Sometimes you will find it further out directly in the water, and so you might there might not be any of the leaves actually coming up out of the water.
So fully submerged. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Some of the telltale signs of it are going to be the triangular stems. So that is to say, if you're looking at it from the top down, it has a triangular shape.
Yeah.
A little bit of a twist to it as it grows up.
Here's a close-up of those leaves. You can see they are clearly three-angled and do that little bit of a twist near the leaf tip. And looking at the leaf in cross-section, you can see that triangular look.
Other things that it might look like, there's an arrowhead sort of plant that grows in a very similar set of conditions, and the young leaves on that will kind of have a triangular look, but it grows much, much shorter, and that will grow, as the name implies, an arrowhead or a spade-shaped sort of broad leaf at the end of it when it starts to get a little bit larger.
Okay.
Another look-alike you should be aware of is three-square Chenoplectus pungens, and that is also triangular in cross-section, but stiffer, not as spongy as flowering rush, and has just small little spike-like flower structures near the tip of the stem, very different from the flower structures we'll show you here on flowering rush. Another is burreed in the genus Sparganium. So there are a couple lookalikes you should be aware of.
The name is a little bit misleading. This plant absolutely does flower, but it's very common for it not to flower at all. So we are in the starting the last third of August, I guess, at this point. So it's just about out of that flowering cycle for the areas that we've been seeing it at. So, but that starts maybe early July, possibly late June, and goes till about now as far as what we've been observing here. I think, broadly speaking, anywhere from June to September, but it's about on the way out there.
Photo of a plant in flower that Matthew shared from earlier this growing season. So you can see that the flowers are pink and occur in umbels, so little stem ending in a flower, but all originating at a single point. And the flowers occur in multiples of 3, with 6 tepals that can be pink to almost purple in color, 9 stamens, and 6 carpels. And the flowers mature into a grouping of 6 beaked fruits. And the flowers can have small reproductive structures that on their own can create a whole new plant, and those are called bulbils. So in this picture, those are the brown structures at the base of the umbel, or where all the little flower stems come together. So you can see it's a very showy bloomer, something you could probably spot at a distance if it is in flower. So surveying for this plant June through August is most productive as far as trying to find and report new locations. And you can see why this plant has been popular in the like aquatic or water garden general nursery trade. So definitely not something we want to be growing in our water gardens. Then they can get disposed of into our natural waterways and really become a problem. So if you see this in a nursery setting, please say something. It is very invasive and avoid purchasing it yourself.
The important thing to remember with this plant, aside from what it looks like and how to identify it, is currently we're just asking people to report it. You can do that through contacting me directly, but if you're following kind of the proper chain of command for this, you would do that through the app called the MISIN app. I think we've talked about it perhaps before, but I'm always happy to share that information.
Yeah.
It's the Michigan Invasive Species Information Network.
Okay.
In fact, it might even be the
Midwest
Invasive Species
Information Network. Yeah, I'll throw a link in for that.
Perfect. I can walk a little bit closer to the camera and show the roots.
Yeah.
It has what are called root bulbils. And if you look here, these are all interconnected. So that's one of the ways that it grows and spreads. If you look, you'll see really tiny little ones here. They almost look like little cloves from garlic or something. I'm holding the plant upside down just for the sake of clarity.
Yeah.
But these will break off and go down the river, and it will spread that way. So
create a whole new plant.
Exactly. Yeah. That will land someplace where the water's a little more slow. And that is one of the methods that it spreads, but it also spreads through traditional seeds on the plants that do flower.
Yeah, the common name's a little bit of a misnomer, flowering rush, but it's not really a graminoid. It is a forb. Yep.
Yes. So we're surrounded by probably, what would you say, 10, 15 plants. I know they're not all visible, and not a one of them even has the stalk on it that would where this flower would come from. So please don't pull it. We've been fortunate that it's in areas where the sand is really shallow and a very fine particle size, and the roots are not deep in it, so we've been able to pull it up in its entirety from what we can see. But we do this sort of thing for a living, so we're very careful and
have the right
how
permits.
We do this. Yes.
Yep.
So again, we're just asking people to report it at this time because you might inadvertently actually make the spread of it worse. So the same goes if you're boating or walking along the banks. Don't walk directly through or paddle over a patch of it, because again, by breaking up these roots, you're furthering that spread, which is an important thing to note.
Yeah. So taking a picture helps when you're reporting, so you can know what is worth coming and following up on in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Pictures are super helpful when filing any report, whether it's on this or any other plant. Yeah. Great point.
And is this the first season that we're seeing it? We're pretty low on that early detection rapid response curve, right?
Yes. So we actually first found this following the flooding in 2020 after the dam failures. So the first and only plant at that time that we found was right at the convergence at the tridge, actually. And I mean the very point of it. So we pulled that up again in its entirety with the root structure there, and we did not see it come back the following year, which was good. We've continued to keep an eye out for it, but this year we found it in a few more spots, and so decided to trace it back a little bit further. So we're finding that it is a bit more in the pine than we thought, but still in a very good early stage for us to get a good handle on it. So that's the good news.
Yeah, before it costs a lot in labor, time, chemicals if needed. Yeah, if we can avoid that.
Absolutely.
And so people can help by looking for it and reporting, and also cleaning their boats and equipment because it's an aquatic plant. Basically good hygiene with all of your aquatic equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first thing I'm going to do before I finish up my day here is give these waders a good spray off before I get too far from here to get rid of anything that might be tracked on them. And that's just good proper practice.
Yeah, cleaning your boats off of the plant material before putting it in another water body or letting it dry out for several days before using it again. So we'll provide some links for good proper boat cleaning and disinfection. But those are the, I guess, the main things we can do. And do you want to say anything else about, you know, why we're concerned, or like this is a pretty high priority species for you in the CISMA?
Yeah, it absolutely is. In terms of toxicity, nothing quite like that. So it's not an immediate threat in the way that some other plants would be.
Sure.
But this spreads pretty quickly and very aggressively. And so it will take over entire shorelines. Other areas of the state are having a really hard time with it. I think it's Minnesota is doing battle with it big
I was
time.
reading some scary things about some lakes there, and it being I guess blocking boat access to lake shores, competing aquatic native plants.
Yep.
Basically changing the habitat so that fish species aren't able to use the shoreline habitats anymore, and really kind of wreaking havoc ecologically and from a economic and recreational perspective too. So for all those reasons, we'd like to stay on top of this one.
And for my listeners who aren't local to the Midland, Michigan area, might not know where the Pine River is, I just wanted to show general range of this species across the United States and Canada, just to give you a sense of where it is already been recorded. A lot of these sites and maps tend to be outdated, so it's good for everyone to be aware of this species and keep their eyes peeled. In Michigan in particular, and central Michigan, this plant has been located along the Pine, the Chippewa, and Tittabawassee rivers. It has been down in southeastern Michigan for a decade or more. Actually, our first records, I think, date back to the 1930s. So definitely look at your watch list species, invasive species, wherever you live. Make sure you know kind of what the up and coming concerns are as far as invasive species. Perhaps flowering rush is on that list where you live as well. And usually when I do invasive species posts, I like to talk about treatment and what can be done about the problem. This one's tricky because of the way the plant can reproduce from broken off plant fragments. Those baubles, like you can see here, those can break off along the rhizomes, underneath the flower heads, from stems and root fragments. And so in Michigan, hand pulling small populations, if you're very careful not to disturb the sediments and get all the plant fragments and dispose of them properly, bagged, in a landfill. You definitely don't want to pick this plant and carry it with you and inadvertently spread it to other parts of the river you're kayaking on, or from one water body to another if you're going in between lakes, something like that. So you want to make sure you're prepared. If you're going to do something, you're prepared to do it properly and dispose of the plant material properly. Honestly, a lot of like the submersed aquatic forms of this plant and really large populations, if equipment's needed, and if herbicides are needed for treatment, that really needs to be done by a professional who's obtained all the appropriate permits. And permitting is really going to depend state to state. Some states like Minnesota don't want you pulling aquatic plants, even hand pulling. So as Matthew said, the best thing you can do is help report where you observe this species so that groups like CISMAs and professionals can secure the correct permits and treat the plants appropriately.
All right. And you, speaking of reporting, this summer you have an event coming up?
We do.
Okay.
Thank you. We're trying out something new this year to help motivate people and get them acquainted with the reporting software and just kind of how to go about reporting things as you're out taking your hike or kayaking or anything like that. So this upcoming Labor Day weekend, starting on that Friday and going until that Monday, we're asking people as they're out and about to report any of the invasives that they see, including and especially this one, so that we can find it out where it's at, and also just to help folks, again, get acquainted with the invasive species in their area. we have a Facebook event page being put together with some great links on helpful identification apps, reporting apps, some how-to videos on how to go through all of that. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible. But
Nice.
if you would help us out on
Yeah.
this upcoming Labor Day weekend, our Citizen Reporting Day event. So
That sounds
first annual.
awesome.
I'm hoping.
Yeah,
So.
that sounds great. All right, well, get out there and be good citizen scientists. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.